You know, sometimes it's easy to chase the shiny object, but what I've quickly realized is, we can't throw technology at our people in the field and complain, why aren't we getting adoption?
On this week's episode of the Matthew Byrd podcast, we're joined by Trevor Owen.
Trevor Owen.
Trevor Owen.
Trevor Owen.
Reality capture leader at Rogers O'Brien Construction.
Project tracking, AI, object recognition.
AI and robotics enthusiast and builder at heart.
In the end, we're all just people going home to our families and trying to make the world a better place. To me, the technology comes second.
It's finally taking that transition past it's kind of nice to have, and it's actually becoming a requirement for so many project types. Airports and hospitals, all these places it's been used over the years.
A lot of the times it's the same response. Whoa, this is cool. Or this is some futuristic stuff. I'm like, no, this is today.
Through your journey, through your learnings, what would be some advice you would give people that are trying to become innovators? Hey guys, before we listen to the full episode, we wanted to ask, if you're liking this content, would you please subscribe to the channel and like the video? It really helps me and our team grow this podcast and bring in more awesome guests to the channel. Thank you, and back to the episode. All right, welcome to another episode of the RCM podcast. Today, excited to have Trevor with us. Trevor, thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks, man. Happy to be here and be on your channel and support RC in any way I can.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I know for some, you'll be a familiar face. It's not the first time we've interacted. We had you out to the conference and getting you involved there. And I love doing podcasts even as a follow-up to people that we've had involved at an event or speak at an event or be on a panel, because, those are good opportunities to engage with individuals on a broad sense. But I love the fact that the podcast gives a chance to really get a deep dive to each individual and hear some of their story, some of their journey. And to me, I think that's valuable because it unpacks a little bit of the journey someone took, which might inspire how can we bring other people in. We can kind of reverse engineer the types of things we should be doing. So with that, let's take us on your journey a little bit, your career journey that led you into what the heck you're focused on now.
I've always been drawn to technology, even at a young age. I grew up with, the original Pokemon and Game Boy and G.I. Joe and, first figuring out how to sneak play my Game Boy at night with a massive contraption, that had the light and the magnifier on it, and modifying my Xbox to try and beat my friends at Halo, or burn games and movies from Blockbuster onto a hard drive so I could watch them whenever I wanted. And even I think before I was a teenager, I was subscribing to Popular Mechanics, if you remember that magazine. And I really wanted to grow up and do something with robotics. Even at a young age, I was drawn to robotics and BattleBots and just everything about technology.
Those are cool.
Yeah, everything about it really just drew me in, and it just clicked for me. I wasn't great in school growing up, but I think it was because it was intangible for me. It was a lot of theory. I'm reading something, comprehending it, and having to regurgitate it, but I was missing the hand, the interaction with what I was learning, and I also grew up playing music, so it's that using my hands to do something, and so I went to school originally for a film degree, and I wanted to be either editor or producer. In college, I was working on a film and on set and helping. I was a PA, just helping get extras around. So I was just learning the basics and ins and outs. But I saw how kind of unstable the industry was. And at the same time, I was working part-time at this electrical contractor. And they said, hey, if you switch your major to something more in line with construction, we'll kind of bring you in, teach you the business, and put you in different parts of the organization so you can learn it. I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds like a great opportunity, because I was like, well, we'll always need construction. And then I saw the writer strike happening in 2007 or 8, and I was like, okay, well, this is not very stable. And so, I switched, and, I always, wherever I go, try and find my niche, something where I can bring that creativity, that tech side, And yeah, I was like in my early 20s when I was managing like this Verizon cell phone plan. Well, at the time it was before that was Sprint. All like the push to talk buttons, and I was managing the cell phones for all of our field guys and office personnel, and we switched to Verizon, so I was working with them on that. Also learning how to do project management. So I was really drawn to construction because we're making things out of nothing with our hands, with people, and being creative, being technical, but having a good time while we're doing it. And then in 2011 is when we had our first like BIM job. We've heard about it a little bit, but this is South Louisiana, and typically we're some of the last to get trends. Really goes from West Coast to East Coast in a sense, and then up in Canada after it hit
Yeah.
us. And so. So our vice president was like, Trevor, why don't you do this? We're pretty good with our phones and our computers and different things. Why don't you do this BIM thing? And I was like, nah, I don't. I was like, no, it's too risky. It's new. I don't even know what it is. But after doing some research of whatever videos were out there at the time on it, I was like, oh, actually, it looks pretty cool. It's like video games. I'm drawn to that. And but applying that to actually the built environment, I was like, wow, this could be something. And so I came back. I was like, yeah, let's do this. And so we literally Googled like Revit training in New Orleans, and Ken Colgan actually lived in the neighborhood behind our office, and he came and trained me on Revit. MEP Revit. It was like that $13,000 flash drive you had to buy, and
Oh, yeah.
stayed under lock and key. Yeah, he trained me for a week, and next thing I know, I'm drawing miles of conduit and cable tray at this hospital, and that was a massive learning curve when it comes to like the workflows and coordination and learning the art of coordination and how that impacts down the road to the guys in the field. But really, what clicked for me was when I said, okay, I want to do this for my career, is when we spend the time doing coordination, and I work with like the change management of the way we've been working with our guys in the field, hand them to like work with them on the drawings, and we take the shop drawings, we go out there, and we're like, yeah, this is installed just like I remember it, 3 months ago on the computer. Like, this is awesome. So something we like took from theory to application, and it's installed, working with people and trying to like really figure this out together, and it works. And that's when it was like, oh wow, like we could really do this on every project. And so yeah, again, my vice president Pat Russo was a big visionary, and he early adopter, or really I would say an early enabler. And he trusted me on that. And so he was like, hey, if you think we got something here, go do it on all projects.
That's awesome.
And so we did. And so we're like, what else can we do from the data in the model? And that was really what was pushing us. Was we saw like how can we maximize our savings on a project using this as a method of working differently. And so we're like, okay, well, now let's coordinate. Okay, well, let's learn other trades. Because I'm electrical, so
Yeah.
if I can learn other trades, the top 5 things to ask during coordination to help us have a better route, while not like throwing them to the wayside, that helps us be a better partner with our trades. So I'm like, oh, I can ask the duct guy to like flip his VAV for access on the other side, or okay, let's not draw above a hard ceiling if we have to have access. So it's just, and then like having to learn to negotiate, like, oh, it's maybe in some cases it's cheaper to move air than copper going through my conduit. And so really, and then teaching my guys as we scaled, I had hired and trained. And so that I wouldn't be here. It's a long history, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the opportunity of learning and falling in love with construction and using technology to get the job done, and really just figuring out a better way to get work done. In the deep south of Louisiana and New Orleans. But like with anything in life, sometimes you look for a new challenge, you look for something different. And that's
Yeah.
where I was kind of get my feelers out there, different things. Like Katera was calling me, or Disney Imagineers, and I had a kid on the way, and so there was also a couple of GCs as well. My daughter was coming, so I was like, I don't want to make that big of a move or whatever right now.
Yep.
And then Hilti, was shortlisted with Hilti, and they were like, "Hey, if we feel that you're the right person, like, we'll wait." I was like, "Whoa,
That's cool.
okay,
Yeah.
deal." And so yeah, then I joined Hilti in 2018, and I'm using, and that was 6 years ago, and I wouldn't.
Time flies.
Yeah, and I'm using so much of the knowledge I learned in that role here at Rogers O'Brien than more than I thought I would. Because that's a marketing role. You're learning about like how to bring a product to market and do customer sensing and working with a global team to develop something. And but it was fun because during my interview, I was like, I don't have like an MBA, I don't have a marketing background, and they're like, good, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So, but there was a huge learning curve for me because they're using like 3 pages of acronyms, and I'm like, and they're using PowerPoint every day to have conversations. I'm like, I never even opened a PowerPoint in my last job. So, but that's a skill that I've learned now, is building content, storytelling, and then really working with the end user to develop something they care about. And so I'm really been able to bottle up those two experiences and do the work here now at Rogers O'Brien, which is it's a team that's newly created in the past year, and the reality capture team, and we cover all 5 of our regions: Dallas, Waco, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and we deliver on laser scanning, on drones, and 360 cameras as far as like the core technology. But we also own like the training, support, QA/QC. How do they even access the data? Who's the end user? Is it the client? Is it VDC? So we own the whole like program and strategy, or I do, and my team and I work on executing it. And so yeah, that's kind of like a nutshell, like how I got here today. But it's really been a massive opportunity at each of those kind of organizations. So happy to be here. And each one of those logos is
Yeah.
red, so I have a thing for red, I guess.
You're stuck
Yeah,
forever.
yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Well, thanks for sharing that. It's nice to hear that journey. And if we go back to some of what you unpacked there, you got to have some hands-on early in Revit and bringing kind of BIM into a company. And it sounds like it took several years probably for that to become from an idea to implementation to building it in a process to figuring out trades to figuring out coordination. And now you look back at like, okay, where is BIM as an industry? As a, like, it's created entire new processes and jobs and needs and roles. And talk a little bit, obviously you walked us through that journey, but what I want to get to is correlating how you've seen that in the industry and now where we're at with this new role where, you're starting a brand new department again, and it's only year one and it's all these new technologies. And, I'd love to correlate some of the history that you've seen of a new technology like that with where we are now.
Yeah, I guess I have a thing for pain and figuring things and scars and just figuring things out along the way. But no, that's kind of goes back to like, I'm always trying to like in my head, I have a sickness it never shuts off. My brain is always trying to find workflows and connect endpoints. And so early on, this was before BIM was even like really a department or a role or really a thing. Dr. Martin Fisher created VDC as a term, and this was before VDC was created. And so you can learn it in school. So we're kind of like, figuring out as we were going. And I was joking with someone the other day, like, man, we were like passed around the flash drive to install, and here's the key written on the back, and then we're having a VPN to a server to access the local models and synchronize to the server and use a VPN. It was so painful. And then collaboration for Revit came out, and we're like, oh, this is amazing. But it wasn't easy. You had to kind of figure out how to use it. But what I caught on to was you're never alone. Like other people are all struggling with the same thing and trying to figure out the same issues. And so myself, along with some like a handful of others in that kind of New Orleans, Mississippi, Alabama area were trying to figure out the same thing, and kind of formed a little peer group and helping each other out. But what's neat is because I still stay in contact with some of those guys. Like, you never know where
Yeah.
people end up. You never know how technology progresses, how much we still are like all dealing with the same issues. And so, today it's in a sense the same thing. It's just really change management. But, how do I help people, in the field do their job better, faster? But the technology is just advanced more. So it's definitely, if you don't stay close to it, it can get away from you, in a sense, because it is changing all the time. But the technology and the methods of technology is also changing. Like, we have the Naviz VLX3, and so using SLAM versus TLS takes some learning curve to
Yeah.
understand, what causes drift and what doesn't cause drift. And I have the X9 behind me, so we use that kind of married up with the VLX. And my old soul, I like the tablet because I can like have control in the field over like
Yeah.
where the VLX, you're like, it's a great tool. We use it for probably 85% of our scans. But again, you're at the mercy of like how good it collects. But
Yeah.
it's a great tool. But yeah, you have to stay close to technology,
Yep.
especially when you're leading a team and the strategy, because like you're relying on them to stay close to the ins and outs on the technical side. But then how does that help our strategy and moving forward in the bigger picture? Because this is really
Yeah.
just tools to help the organization. So how do we help these? How does this enable the business need, the company need?
Yeah. Maybe you can speak a little bit. One of our goals, right, with even these podcasts, with this interview, with the conference, all of it is educating. It's raising awareness to like, where is the industry now? What's the adoption of these technologies look like? Where is it going? And I think when now we're hearing, hey, you're in year one of very large construction firm, believing in these technologies enough that there's a whole department being created and a whole process. Could you speak to a little bit of that department creation and some of the vision for that team within the company and where you kind of see that going? What your anticipated roadmap looks like?
Yeah, sometimes it's easy to chase the shiny object, but what I've quickly realized is, we can't throw technology at our people in the field and like complain, why aren't we getting adoption?
Yeah.
There has to be, and that's where I tap into like the Hilti side. We have to define like the customer journey. Like, if someone is using an iPad is like advanced for them, I can't be bringing like AI and robot dogs out to their job site because it'll be like so overwhelming for the technology side, but then also it'll be harder for them to grasp the value, because we have to like incrementally expose them to the technology. And that's really what we're doing is we are finding those internal champions. We're boots on the ground on job sites throughout the week, showing them the technology, demystifying the technology, really normalizing, the stuff on the job site. Because the more it gets out of this office and more into the field every day, they're used to seeing it. And then also like speed of delivery is important. So we used to have scanners that would, and that tech stack could take days or weeks to get a scan. But then even then, the operations team's like, I don't know how to use this. Like,
Yeah.
and so now, since we've invested into Naviz, we use Ivion to host everything. We'll bring in the scans from the X9 onto Ivion as well. And so now it's just an easy hyperlink that they can log into and access, or whether, no matter the persona, whether it's a VDC person, the client, someone in operations, that's kind of like for scanning our go-to. But that's where we really capitalize on harnessing those small wins.
Yeah.
Because if we can harness the small wins, that really makes the technology tangible.
Yeah.
If we can find the small, issues or problems and say, hey, we scanned this in half an hour, and it eliminated any need for tape measure or guesswork or trips. Whatever that value is and use case is, harness it, bottle it up. If it just stays in your head or email or like, hey, that was cool, high five each other, no one else knows about it. No one else can get exposed to it and rally around it. And that's something that, like, even the small wins that I've like thought about, like, oh, this is, that was fun. But like, if we can put on a couple slides and, like, celebrate it, it kind of click. It makes
Yep.
it easier for people to click. And so that's what I'm really working with my team too, is closing the feedback loop. Hey, we brought value. That's great, but are you using it or not?
Yeah.
Did it help or not? And really closing the feedback loop is important to us, because we want to not just show that we're doing the work, but how are we impacting their lives and the project. And then this is just the beginning, but moving forward, like year 20, end of 26, we're looking at having like a command center built out, physical space built out for our more experienced, seasoned project directors, field directors, to sit and manage multiple projects without having to leave, to have to drive their truck and get a bunch of windshield time. Now their core knowledge and experience and expertise can be used and tapped into, and that's where we're also looking at different tools today, such as Cubix. We're going to be piloting Track 3D, possibly Build Dots. These different AI progress tracking solutions. Because if a project director is sitting there looking at a live feed or the latest laser scan of a project and the schedule, then we have these tools overlaid on top of it that can then, hey, there's leading indicators of where the project is going, if it's going off track or not. Because then if it's a yellow, hey, we might have a bit of a watch out here. This person with so much experience can open up the schedule and the camera and say, hey, you know what, we need to make a couple of adjustments on this project, or we are going to be off. And so that's kind of like our North Star right now. And along the way, we're also looking at, how can we augment people to focus more on the build. If we keep talking about the skilled labor shortage, that's not really going to change anything. We don't really have the luxury of throwing people at projects anymore. So our way of really, going about it is augmenting people to focus on the build, and that's where robotics comes into play. So if I'm talking about 360 cameras, our people should not be photographers.
Yeah,
With
sure.
their iPads, phones, and 360 cameras, they should be builders. And so, and that's where we're looking at maybe robotics to autonomously walk around and do the photographing for us. And so that's something else that's on our roadmap as well. So there's a lot that we're working on. We're really building a foundation for common practice today around reality capture, while at the same time we're kind of dovetailing in and testing for future technologies as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's interesting bringing up the skilled labor shortage, and I would actually pose the question to you on, is that both on the actual trades and the technologists? Because the thing that's unique about where we're at, I think, with the technologies is that they can help support different gaps, or maybe reduce certain labor in normal trades. But at the same time, as this industry is starting to grow, and we see everybody is starting a reality capture team, growing robotics, there's only so many people that have been doing this. And so I see so many people trying to hire these roles and really a lack of experienced personnel. So how are you guys going about that? Are you building your own training material? Are you having to get people that have zero experience and build them in? Or, what's that look like for you as you're looking at kind of growing this?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Everyone's trying to find the same people, no matter it's in VDC or reality capture. And so some of the things we're doing today is we have an internal learning education platform called Propel, and but then also are we call it the playbook, and that's where anything around standard operating procedures, or filling out an expense report, or what's our policy on vacation, so those types of things, this also lives in there. So if someone, it's like the Google search for RO construction.
Yeah.
so they can go and type in laser scan, and we'll have different guru cards. Get Guru is the platform, so they call them cards, and so we'll have these different cards around around the customer journey. Hey, how do I get laser scanning on my job? Oh, let me type it in. And we also use different medium, such as like a weekly newsletter or going live on Propel, which is our learning and development platform for training, reality capture 101. So we hit them with different touch points, but then also just using the language, inserting the language and mindset, and taking away the stigma around reality capture is just laser scanning. But I saw your video, I think you posted yesterday, around how reality capture is more data gathering and using that to make decisions. And I even joke around and call my team the data gatherers,
There you go.
because then we're just enabling the people who are going to be making judgment calls off of the data.
Yeah.
But there's a labor shortage for sure, a skilled labor shortage. But as long as you're teachable and trainable and have that knack for being curious and trying to, test different things and not afraid to go to the job site and just
Yep.
get your boots dirty and figure things out, like you're in a good environment. But it also has to be, part of a strategy. Because I have seen a couple of organizations this year where I'll have kind of a call with them to kind of show them what we're doing, and they're like, "Oh man, I'm the only guy in VDC, and I'm trying to get a scanner." I'm like, "No, don't get a scanner."
Yeah.
Because then, like, you're going to be the scanner person and the VDC person.
Yeah.
It has to be part of your strategy. It has to be bought in from top down. Because if you don't have that freedom and if you don't have that contribution to the strategy, it's going to be an uphill battle. And
Yeah.
you're going to be trying to drive change within your organization uphill, where you really need to be looking out and how do I take this change and then impact it. Because if you don't have that feeling of enablement and feeling of like just freedom, you'll be bashing your head against the wall every day. But once you do you're like a dog chasing a bus, and once you do have your teeth on the bus, it doesn't stop there. Because what I've noted, like I get inundated with technology solution providers every day, and they're great people. We'll go out and have a beer and have dinner and catch up. But like everyone's working on the same thing. Everyone's trying to get that same thing. Like progress tracking is like what everyone's chasing right now. And so, but I'm just one person, but that allows me to filter to RO, the rest of RO. But once we find something that we want to test and pilot, that solution provider needs a partner. They need an internal partner to then be them inside of the company. Because if I just say,
Yeah.
hey, person operations talk to this person, they'd be like, they're the dirty salesman trying to sell them software or hardware. So that's where I come in, and we're the ones who are kind of taking that on and owning the the internal sales cycle with the solutions provider kind of with us. Because that when it's an RO person talking to an RO person, that kind of breaks down that barrier of pitchy and salesy. But then also it allows us to talk to our internal customer and kind of filter what's their need, what's their pain points, and then go back to the solutions provider. And so that's really also kind of the stance that we take is talk to us and our team, and then we'll go from there, and we'll be your internal champion. We'll be your partner. And that's really what they need, because a lot of times people will just bring on these solutions providers and technology providers, and then it just falls flat because you don't have anyone internally carrying that torch. And it can't be like someone in operations who kind of like a project engineer who just kind of is techie. It has to be someone or a team dedicated to it, to own it, to own the relationship, and owning the strategy around it. There has to be a formal way of going about it. And I've never known that or experienced that until I got here, and I'm like, wow, this has kind of been a miss in the industry where you don't have that internal person or team carrying the torch for these solutions providers. It's been a little bit of a disservice to them because they're trying to sell their product, they're trying to put food on the table, and make a little bit of profit along the way, and so they need that internal team to help them. And I joke with them. I'm like, hey, like, this is great technology, but I kind of don't care because I'm not the one consuming the data. I have
Yeah.
to go talk to my internal customer, the one who's actually going to be using the product, using the data that it gathers. And so I kind of like, disarm them a little bit on the sales side. I'm like, hey, let me go sell for you, sell with you.
Yeah.
Because if I'm just the one staring at dashboards and AI, no building is going to be built. So I
Yeah.
need to learn it, but then also hear from our teams in the field. Hey, will this bring value? I don't want to disrupt your day to day. I don't
Yeah.
want to like cause any. That was a big term 10 years ago, disruption.
Yeah.
But with the skilled labor shortage, we can't afford to disrupt too much these days.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's an area over the last few years. It feels like I've seen more and more companies realize that and start an innovation department or an R&D or a digital technology team because over the last 10 years, the variety of technologies that are available and platforms and hardware and process, there's so much
Yeah.
that if you don't have a dedicated team to be a filter, to go through and test different platforms, if you don't have that and you're a company who tries to adopt, it's like, where the heck do you start? And then you get the wrong product and then their data fails and then the accuracy's not there. Like, there is so much, at surface level, people do make the technology sound very easy. And don't get me wrong, those of us that have been in scanning the last, 10, 15 years, yes, today it is a lot easier than it used to be.
Oh, yeah.
You can throw on a scanner, hit one button, and walk around.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned even earlier, how does that integrate into a control network? How does the drift and the error come into play? When should I still use a terrestrial versus a mobile? Why is this terrestrial 10,000 and that one's 50? Like, there are so many complexities that in order to fully really build it in and have a good process that's efficient, that's accurate enough, and you know what you're doing with the data, like, it is a full-time job. It's a full-time department. And in order to really successfully adopt it as a company, I think it kind of has to go two ways. You either, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for this either, and I see different companies take the different route, but you're either going all in and you're building a whole team and you're understanding what all goes into that, or you're determining that you're going to outsource that part and you're going to work with a service provider. Because when you try to go halfway and you're like you were mentioning earlier, the VDC guy just wants to buy a scanner. Every time I've seen that happen it's just failed.
Yeah.
The scanner ends up becoming sitting on a bookshelf because it's too much work. Nobody had time. The training isn't there. They didn't realize how much data storage they needed. They didn't know there's just so much to it. So a company to really adopt this successfully is like, you got to have that vision and that strategy. You have to have some buy-in from leadership, and you have to make that decision of, really understanding everything that goes into turning these technologies into an ecosystem that becomes a part of your business.
And that's the word you just said is area that we're working on right now, and that we're testing as an ecosystem. Because it's great if you can get the technology to get, people see value in it and start asking for it, the jobs are wanting to pay for it. And so, but if we can make it easier to access, that's where we can make the data work for us, and you get that democratization of the data.
Yep.
And that's where we see something like Cubix as a platform, because they're kind of hardware agnostic. And so we have projects with Cubix right now where team members are capturing with the 360 camera, but then also we'll bring in the scan into Cubix. We'll bring in the drone flight, the LAZ file from Propeller into Cubix. We'll bring in they integrate with ACC and Revisto, so we'll push up the model to Cubix. They integrate with Procore, so we'll push up data from Procore. And so really now, and since Cubix can open up within the Procore API, our people who live in Procore every day in operations, now they can access that data without having to go to, oh, you want drone flight, here's this login. Oh, you want scanning, here's this login,
Ugh.
all these different silos that are kind of fragmented, and there's no interoperability. There's some work on that we were contributing to on the roadmap of Cubix, because for this to really be the platform that we're looking at, Now we're looking at other things like I had mentioned earlier, but this is just one that our project teams have seen, and we're really pushing it too. We're not just saying, oh, it's a 360 photo platform. But
Yeah.
if they say, hey, we can take in all kinds of data, we're like, okay, let's test it.
Yeah. Explore.
And that's what we're
Yeah.
doing. We're throwing as much as we can. There's companies like Field AI who are now integrating with Cubix and pushing their 360 data captures to Cubix autonomously with Field AI. So now that removes that human element out of it. So that's kind of an interesting point as well. Just adding on to the ecosystem, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think everything you're talking about now is the biggest area of improvement for the industry. And what's really going to see mass adoption is this change, right? Like, historically, there were only so many platforms. There was only so much hardware, and they had their own little software. But now the more that this is growing, there's so many people starting to focus on this data and see the value and see the integrations and historically, it's always been this little team within a big company who had the really special computer that had the one license of the software, and they tried to extract the value out of this data and give it to a team. And now starting to move to this point of ecosystems of software or use of platforms that are easy to use, that you don't have to be that modeling expert. Like the more hands that the same data can touch, the more valuable it becomes and the more desired it becomes. And that's why from my perspective, I just say over the next, looking at where we've come the last 15 years since I heard about scanning to where we are now, and now looking at what the next 5 and 10 years looks like, there won't be a job site that this is not on in some capacity, right? And that makes a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of struggle to get there. There's a lot of development to happen. And that's also why I love this community so much, in really trying to pull these messages together and talk about them together. Is we as a community can give that feedback that informs product, that informs ideas. We share these lessons learned of like, how is this platform working for you? And it makes the whole industry, work better.
Which is true. I mean, the technology is changing so fast. Like, I was name dropping different solutions, but those logos are just could be placeholders. That's just kind of like what we're looking at and testing today. And so as we hear and collaborate on within the community and learn, whether it's at a conference or like the RCN forum board, and just seeing what's working, what's not working. That's where we can like really kind of plug and play with these different solutions providers, or say, hey, what are you beta testing? This is kind of where our strategy and kind of our roadmap and where we'd like to go. Does your roadmap align with that? What are you beta testing? Let's be a part of that as well, and then kind of shoot holes in what you're looking at. And really, but it's also showing our people we can't lose sight of our internal customer, which is the person operations, the person at the job trailer. It's so easy to get caught up in this technology, but if we don't we almost do like internal like business development. Like, hey, we haven't seen them in a while. Go buy them, take them out to lunch. Maintain that like against the kind of like salesy, but you're maintaining that relationship. Because if we just treat laser scanning or reality capture as a commodity, like, oh, hey, I need laser scanning. Okay, it's gonna be this much. All right, let me invoice the project, and all right, see ya. That's not that eliminates the human aspect out of it and relationship aspect out of it. And so, but if we're going to be building something together, these are just tools and a means to an end. We need to maintain that connection, that touch point with our people, not just on the technology side, but just on a human level. Because if we are going to be testing, we can't be testing in a vacuum. We want to be testing with them. So if we maintain that relationship and that touch point, and we're like, hey, actually, we're looking at something. Would you mind kind of helping us out and looking at it? They're like, yeah, sure. So you also build that level of trust that I'm not just out here like chasing the shiny object, that I'm actually out here because I care and I want to enable their lives to be better. And so I mean that's kind of like where we're at with reality capture, but we just see it growing exponentially. We've actually tapped into a little bit of a opportunity outside of RO as well, because we started to kind of sell our reality capture services directly to clients, directly to architects, engineers. And that was something we kind of theorized. We're like, man, I wonder if there's something there. We got asked a couple of times 2 years ago, and we self-performed that. And but there's no real strategy or
Yeah.
business approach to it. And now that is a part of my role in our team is kind of sensing to see what opportunities are out there. What's that? Total market value of going after reality capture services. And there's a
Yeah.
huge need out there. It's really
Yeah.
surprising is some of the bigger architects out there that you think, oh, they're huge. But there's very little education and understanding around what is a laser scan, how do I actually use
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like, oh, is that a
Yeah.
Matterport thing? I'm like, sort of.
Similar. Yeah. Yeah, no, it is surprising, but I still feel like the actual volume of companies that have adopted these technologies that should, I still think is so low.
yeah.
Like 15%. That is what I would still assume or guess, through all the conversations I have. Most people assume it's been around a while, we're probably late to the game.
Yeah.
But just literally anybody right now, pick up the phone, look up a structural engineer, look up an architect, call them all and ask, like, is laser scanning, is scan to BIM, is robotics, is drones, is XR, are any of these technologies like in all of your jobs? Probably none
no.
of them. Like, maybe, hey, we kind of use this tool, or we started doing 360 photo, but not very many companies have this figured out yet.
Yeah.
It is in the growth phase. It's in the testing phase. It's in the trial phase. And yet at the same time, it has been around long enough that a lot of the major organizations are now past that trial phase. They are to the phase of, look, we want to adopt this, or we're going to require it on every job, or it's finally taking that transition past, like, it's kind of nice to have, and it's actually becoming a requirement for so many project types, airports and hospitals and all these places it's been used over the years. A lot of the demand when that project comes out is, hey, you have to scan above the ceiling. We need you to model the MEP. Why? Because it's been done a few times. The results have been shared. The ROI has been proven. And now even the owners are starting to understand, hey, we should demand that whoever's going to do this next build does that because it saved us this, they proved this, the visual is nice, we have an as-built at the end. And so, it's really, I think, going to see a lot of change in the coming few years where you start to see that it's demanded on projects instead of just companies deciding, hey, we're going to do it because it's beneficial to us.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, it has to be a point in time to where you have to make the decision to make the investment, and then in the structure, the technology, but then also into the strategy side of we're going to do this on every project, or we're going to have some qualifiers around, some parameters around how we approach it. You don't have to say we're going to do every project from now on. Maybe it's just certain square footage or certain types of projects, certain TI projects. Maybe above ceiling is just like too cumbersome for a two-person team to handle right now. We even tap into a third party every now and then when the demand, to kind of like as the release valve. But it's my team, contracting that company out, and we'll work with them. We'll filter the quality, because we've seen with a couple of clients where they're like, oh, we had a scan already done, but it was like from a scanning company, that's their core business. They're not a builder, so we approach, so we just rescanned it, because it was like, they didn't understand, or they didn't ask the right questions for the end user. How are you going to access the data? It was a bunch of recap files, which is okay, but the architect's like, we really didn't know what to do with it. Yeah, and that's where we kind of like play into the builder, and then also some business development, but then also reality capture expertise to kind of provide this white glove experience for the client, because we want to make sure that they're actually using the data, not just collecting the check and going onto the next project. Because we also have the builder side where we also want to position ourselves to go after that project, if or when it becomes a construction project. And so that's something that we have really seen. And I'll do lunch and learns, or kind of like virtual calls and kind of show them like like an information slide deck that I put together. And yeah, it's a lot of the times it's the same response, like whoa, like
Yep.
this is cool, or like this is some
Yeah.
futuristic stuff. I'm like, no, like this is today.
Yeah. Yep.
This is not the
Yeah.
future. It
Yeah.
is cool, I agree.
Yep.
But this is like today. We're doing it now.
Yep. Yep. Well, that's where our goal is to get people that are on this same journey, that have these same goals and these same missions, and hey, let's work together and create more case studies that we can share with each other. We share ROI results. We share some marketing collateral, because there's so much opportunity to continue developing. And this even goes back to your comment a minute ago about you guys still even hiring third party sometimes. I believe the future of this is there's way more of that happening, because as the demand grows, in some ways, it's unrealistic to think that a company is going to do all of it themselves, because, it's really impossible to own all the devices, all the device types, travel to every job site, be out there in a day's notice. And so I think that if people break down some of those walls, which I do see happening more now than in the past, where they're open to collaboration, they don't see people just as competition, it will be better and more healthy for each business to build some relationships and say, hey, when we have a project that's outside of our area, let's use this qualified firm there.
Yeah.
But we got to also get to the point, how do you qualify people? There's no standard, there's no training, there's no
Do
certification.
you do it? Yes.
Yeah. So I think long term, though, there's going to be so much more benefit from being open, being collaborative, because it lets you narrow into your expertise. Less devices in house, less skill set. There's just not enough skilled individuals for every company to do it all themselves either. So kind of picking and choosing at what point do we collaborate with someone is definitely a route most people should look at.
And that's the same journey BIM and VDC took over the past 15 years. Now you have BIM farms all over the world that you can of all ranges of hourly rates.
Yep.
But now you can't do BIM or VDC on projects without some sort of outsourcing involved, just because it's probably cost prohibitive to have that big of a team and self-perform, but then also the production work that's involved, that the end user, the people in the field need and rely on. You're exactly right. I see the same thing happening as well, and that's where we, kind of allows us to kind of have that tailored approach. There's different scales and variations of how much or little people want from us when it comes to data. It could be turnkey, full scan to BIM, above ceiling, below ceiling, roof, or whatever, or it could be just I need this room scanned and that's it. Send me the file. But it allows us to kind of be flexible with our clients, and Ivion's really nice about that too. Kind of have that custom login, and you could see their pinpoints of their scans on the project. So that we really use that as part of our customer experience, I guess, with service, because they're not just getting a OneDrive link to download some scan data, some scan files. They're getting more of the customer experience along the way, and we've customized a user guide for Ivion for that experience. So that way, again, it's not just here's this link, good luck.
Yep, walk them through.
Yeah, we kind of walk them through it a little bit. Here's the top 4 things you need to know, or buttons you need to click, and so that we want to maintain that good customer experience, and that goes for internal people. It could be a superintendent that we're talking to. We always have a handoff call. Hey, we did the work. Here's how you use the file, or the scan, here's how you pull measurements, what do you care about, or the VDC person just cares about downloading it and bringing it into their coordination software. But we've also seen a big adoption too around using Cubix on one project, and they're it's a renovation of a hospital. They don't know what MEP systems are staying, what's being rerouted, what's going to be new. So they're going through and they're spray painting or color coding the different MEP systems that are existing overhead, and we'll go back and scan it. And so that way and they're doing a walk in Cubix, so that way they can then have the scan within Revit and Navisworks, and it's color coded of the systems, and then also they can see the same conditions in Cubix, and they're actually making annotations So it's really cool to kind of see some of these
Yeah.
teams take it and even do more than what we're even
Yeah.
advertising.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, that comes back to the value you talked about of working closely with them is like, and it's the same reason that the software company gets value from working with the users. And now you guys get in working with the end client is like sometimes problems they can solve are simple. Maybe we didn't even think about that being a main value. So having that feedback loop you talked about, looking at that as a whole, lots of value that can come from there. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and then that allows us to then open up that door for that solutions provider to come in, because once our team is using it, they see value in it, then it's like, hey, let me take care of you again. What if I bring in the company to come in and talk to you? And that way you can hear directly from them. So again, it kind of like allows us to, we're not inundating with them with a bunch of technology, with a bunch of people, and we're just allowing them to go incrementally on that customer journey and say, and now that they've been using that software for several months, now it's like, hey, let's have a call with the actual company, and the technical person in the back office or customer success person to come in person. And that way you can talk to them, bring some swag, and kind of take care of them. And they love that because it shows that we care. It shows that, again, we maintain those touch points. I always talk to my team about reducing churn internally because we want to become expected in a standard on projects when it comes to reality capture. Because the projects have the gold. They have the gold. And if we want to help them maximize their savings of the gold, they're going to place their chips on different areas, and we want to be where they're betting, and we want to help them win. And if they can help them maximize their savings of the gold, then they're gonna they've won us over, and now we're gonna go with them on their next project. And that's really, we're hustling right now to help open their eyes to that and maximize those tangible examples. We're even putting the scanner. We'll say, hey, come out of the job chillers, come, see how this works, and we're putting the VLX on them, showing them how to walk around. Again, it's really, taking the let's say, like I say demystifying, but it's really you're not looking at it for the futuristic technology. This X9 has like 3 cameras on it. It makes weird R2D2 sounds when it turns around. So it can be kind of intimidating for people. Here in Texas, we've got a lot of cowboys. And so if you're talking to them about lasers and all kinds of stuff, it'd be kind of overwhelming.
Get that robot dog out of here.
Exactly. And so when you're like, hey, trust me, just put this on or hold this tablet, push the start button, the scan button, then it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. So, which is, from my previous life around doing BIM and VDC every day, that was hard because it's intangible. And then how do you communicate to someone who's never experienced the problems that this solution is trying to provide when you can't hold it in your hand? It's like describing to a blind person what a purple zebra looks like. But that's where reality capture has a bit of a leg up there because it is tangible when it comes to how the sausage is made, how you're solving problems. Where VDC and BIM, it's a struggle because you're relying on the computer, on the software, and many times it's a technical software that you're having to like learn and navigate. And we are working with these different teams. We're working with VDC, and we're kind of like the technology that's helping even drive some of the adoption to BIM and to VDC. Because it's like, oh, well, you want the scan where it lives in the model. Well, how do I navigate that? Well, here, let's show it with the VDC person. Let's show you how to navigate the model.
It all connects.
So it's really cool penetrating the different parts of the organization as well with the data.
That's awesome. Okay, well, as we start narrowing in here, I want to ask a few direct questions and just have you respond with what first comes to mind, which probably could already be extracted out of what you've shared. But
sure.
So top of mind with everything that you're working on and all these different technologies and all this integration, what would you say the first thing you think of as your biggest pain point right now?
My biggest pain point, I would say, is specifically around this project for tackling, figuring out, and understanding the progress tracking. I wouldn't say it's a pain point. It's just more the pain is just understanding, weeding out the different, who says it really is AI? Is there a wizard behind the curtain, for the AI, and testing that, implementing that. I would say that's probably one of our biggest things we're looking at right now, and just because that takes time. That takes time to like really understand it, go through a project. You have to wait
Yeah.
for the data to then, process and have the AI go through it. So it's a longer answer, but
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. No, I like hearing what first comes to mind.
yeah.
Out of the technologies that you're not fully utilizing yet, what would be one of the future technologies you're looking forward to pushing more?
I would say figuring out how to implement mesh and Gaussian splatting more. It's back to the pain. It is a pain when I'm trying to show someone at a trailer or a client's office a point cloud, and Ivion's great, but again, it's on the cloud, and so it's hard, it's internet dependent, and so then it's like, okay, well, I promise this is going to be point cloud, and it's just things just start to populate.
One pixel at a
Yeah,
time.
I'm like, okay. But something with like a mesh or a Gaussian splat would help eliminate that, make it much more, easier to digest for someone I'm showing the data to. And it's lightweight too. It can, open up on your phone or tablet or whatever.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, awesome. Well, I'm down to my last question, which is really, through your journey, through your learnings, through your career journey, what would be some advice you would give to, people that are out there listening that are trying to become innovators, or they're wanting to grow in these technologies, or they're trying to consider a role in this industry? Like, what's just some career advice that you would leave?
Be humble, and be personable. In the end, we're all just people going home to our families, and trying to make the world a better place. To me, the technology comes second. I once heard like BIM is 90% sociology and 10% technology. And if you can be humble, but then also be curious, ask why. If you ask a tradesperson, hey, why are you doing it this way? They will tell you because they take pride and passion in their skill.
Yep.
And if you be curious and just admit that you don't know everything and you want to learn from your own experience, your own understanding. So one, be personable, be humble, but then also be curious, be gritty. Once you find out that why, sometimes getting that person might take visiting multiple times. It might be you're being told no a bunch, or so it's just how you face your challenges is going to say a lot about you, as well as developing some thick skin. Sometimes if you believe in something and you're getting told no, it can be it can be a beating sometimes. But if
Yep.
you really have a passion and hone in on it, prepare to go to battle for that passion, or you might need to make a change to another organization that already has that type of culture of innovation. So persevere. Todd Wynn told me early on in my career to persevere, be patient, and be persistent. And if you can do that, and along with the technology, because the technology is changing way more frequently than us humans are, and so if you can have those soft skills, and then harness it in with the technology, you're going to be successful, and you're going to be that that person that people call on, and like when they have a problem, they know that they can send up the bat signal and rely on you. So if you're doing that today, keep at it. Be persistent and be the change. And if not, then find your passion and believe in it.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah,
Very
man.
solid. Very solid ending. I know it's gonna inspire some of the listeners,
Good.
and of course, it won't be the last time that they hear from you. I'm sure. So
I'm happy to inspire and educate any way I can. And the little journey that I've been on, really, it's. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those organizations before me, allowing me to tag along. So, yeah, thanks, Matt, for having me, and let's connect at Geo Week.
Of course, yeah. Looking forward to spending more time with you. Thank you again, and we'll see you guys next time.